Hey everybody, and welcome to the Welch Review. Today we are going to be talking about a movie called Firestarter. I think it's from like the 80s.
Yeah, from the 80s, based on a Stephen King novel of the same name.
I feel like everything in the 80s is based off of a Stephen King novel.
I feel like everything today is based on a Stephen King novel.
Maybe a few.
What if this is based on a Stephen King novel?
Who makes this? Who's in it? What's going down?
So this film is directed by Mark L. Lester. In the movie, you have David Keith, you have George C. Scott, you have Martin Sheen, you have a very young Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, dude. I didn't even. When they were like, "Oh, that's Drew Barrymore," I was like, "No, dude, that's a child right there." And they're like, "Yep,
That's a child right there."
Yeah, apparently Drew Barrymore's parents were
Parents,
actors.
great-parents, great-grandparents.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And her godfather, Stephen King.
Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg?
Spielberg, yeah.
Okay, that's even more moviness. Because, yeah, Stephen King is the guy who made the book, wasn't he? Yep, so never mind, I'm stupid. So, yeah.
It also has, like, a really small role with Heather Locklear.
Heather Locklear?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Our dad said she was a babe, and he did not lie, she's a babe.
Yeah.
I hope you're doing well, Miss Locklear, and you're beautiful. Anyhow.
So, yeah, so this movie is about a little girl who has pyrokinetic powers, and for any of you who don't know what pyrokinesis is, it's when you can make flames with your brain. So you look at a thing and you're like, that's on fire, and then it's on fire. But she doesn't have a strong grasp on it, and it's also not just pyrokinesis that she can do. She also is telepathic.
Yep, she can communicate with her father with her mind.
And she can read minds. So she has quite a few powers.
And, like, they get this because, like, the government at the time has a branch called the Shop.
Yeah.
And what they do is they're experimenting with this new drug called Lot 6.
Yeah.
And it would endow the user of it with powers beyond belief, or it would backfire and kill you.
Yeah.
And basically what they did was they gathered up like a bunch of like hippies and like social outcasts or people who are just down there like need money to test this on. And basically, Charlie, played by Drew Barrymore, her two parents were in the program, right? So Heather Locklear was her mom, and David Keith plays her dad, Andy.
Yeah.
And they get together in the program, and then, cohesive, they make her...
Yeah, so Heather Locklear's power in the movie is that she is also telepathic.
Yeah.
And her
dad.
Yeah, the dad,
David Keith,
his power is that he can force people to do what he wants with his brain. So he's also not actually the best at that. His power is pretty I mean, not that it's bad, like
right.
It does work, but he can only use it on one person at a time. It fatigues him. It makes his nose bleed. So it's difficult for him to do.
It also makes a fun sound, like when he goes like this, it goes like... It's like in a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, like when he does that and he can like talk to something, kind of like Aquaman too.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that's kind of their powers, and the story opens with Andy, David Keith, and Charlie, Drew Barrymore are on the run from government agents, and that's kind of essentially like half the movie,
yeah.
Right? Like, they're just on the run from these guys, and then it feeds us some backstory, right, about how the parents met during the Lot 6 trial, how they were in, like, suburban life, and then, like, how it ended up only just being the two of them.
Yeah, and then eventually the government, like, tracks them down. Charlie shows off how BA she can be, but... eventually they get captured, even though they fight off the government on a few occasions. So eventually they get captured, and then the shop starts to experiment on them, and not necessarily like drastic experiments at first. At first it's just like seeing what they can do.
If their power level is over 9,000.
Exactly. If they scream loud enough, will they turn golden?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the premise, except
yeah.
She doesn't quite get there, only slightly like off red, yellow.
Yeah. Now, this movie is very good, but when I was watching it, I was very tired, and I actually fell asleep. So, as far as like more towards the ending.
Gotcha.
I kind of missed out.
So like Sam says, they do get captured, right? And basically George C. Scott, right,
Yep.
who plays a fantastic villain known as Rainbird. He's loco in his own mind. Like half his face is a little singed, and he has a long ponytail, which is crazy, because he definitely looks like he's seen some stuff, like an ex-Vietnam vet or something. But he believes, like, if he looks at people in their eye while he like Bruce Lee karate chops them directly in the nose and kills them, he'll absorb their power and go to the next life with it. And that's kind of what he wants to do with Charlie. He wants to absorb her power, so when he goes to the next life, he's that much more powerful. But he does a great job at playing all sides, right? He pretends to be an orderly and befriends Charlie, and then he's also like the scary guy that the government doesn't want to use, but Martin Sheen's character, Agent Hollister, does use, and they're back and forth because they clearly don't like each other. And there's a really good standoff scene between Charlie, her dad, and Rainbird, and like who she chooses and how it all plays out. I won't give that away, but Mark L. Lester does a great job. Like he builds up the drama and the suspense, right? When Charlie keeps saying like, I don't know if I can hold it back, right? And then there's a scene where her father gives her permission to go full force, right? To go beast mode. And she does. And like the last 10-15 minutes of the film are just her lighting shit up left and right. Like I'm talking, she actually shoots meteors and like just all the time. And it's a little campy because it's like, oh, where'd those meteors come from? But it's also like, yo, man, that 8-year-old girl shooting meteors. And like, obviously those who aren't familiar with the story, this is like the book, I mean. This is a really cool like origin story for this character if it were to, go further, right? Like it's kind of like a superhero story in a sense, or a hero's journey. Something that's definitely been played with in comic books. So it's cool that Marco Lester's brought it to life, like in that kind of a lens. Yeah. I think the score, like the synthesizers, are very, very good.
You like synthesizers.
I'm a big fan of that, and like those of you who are fans of Stranger Things like us, you can see how Charlie could be like an early prototype for the Duffer Brothers.
Yeah, like an 11 type character. One of the other things about Charlie, or at least the actors, I guess I should say, is that as far as like child acting goes, I'm normally a giant critic about child acting, but this movie doesn't have bad child acting. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, she's a kid, she doesn't have amazing range, yeah. Right? But what she does do is most of the time it's her feeling very bad about the fact that, like, she murdered people, or she's accidentally murdered people. And I think that she does a good job portraying that kind of character. Like, a kid who knows that they did something wrong and they feel bad about it, but she also had to do it. Yeah. Like, she didn't have a say. I don't think that that's necessarily easy for a kid to do, and Lord knows that the kid who played Anakin Skywalker did a bad job. I'm glad that one kid with superpowers can get it down. At the same time, I don't think that her father is an amazing display of that, or whoever plays him.
David Keith is kind of just like a scruffy, dirty version of Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, and like, he's okay.
Yeah.
He does the job, but he doesn't do the job in any outstanding, incredible, memorable way. No. And that's kind of how I feel about most of the characters in this film. Aside from the old man who gives them a ride. No.
Oh, Irving.
Yeah. He does a good job.
Yeah.
And I think that Charlie Sheen's dad, I can't remember his name. Martin Sheen. I think Martin Sheen does fine.
He does. He doesn't do, like, he plays, he can, like, it's definitely a role where he has the ability to ham it up, especially in specific scenes, and you'll see if you see it. And he does a good job. He does a good job in it. I think for me, the big standout, aside from, like, Drew Barrymore, was probably George C. Scott. He typically, isn't cast as a villain, so seeing him as a villain is probably strange. But also, like, he goes for it. He sinks his teeth in the role, and he does a good job. And he does really well. I think there are definitely a couple plot holes in the story, like the fact they hitchhike, and then all of a sudden, that guy's their best friend. And then, like, the end, when they're like, oh, you're safe now, and they just walk into the New York Times, and that's it, and it's like, no, I don't think, or when they're like, we'll be safe here, and it's like, yes, the evil government facility that's tracking you totally doesn't know about your secret vacation property on a lake.
That belonged to your father.
Yeah, your grandfather and your dad, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, overall, decent film. It's definitely dated because it's older, but it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's a good piece of, like, 80s fluff cheese, you know, like, and if you're a fan of Stranger Things...
Fluff cheese sounds like a thing that's not good.
If it's in the supermarket, don't buy it.
Also, why are all of these socks in the middle of her room?
That's a question for another day.
Alright.
This has been the Welch Review.
Yeah, if you don't have anything to watch, check it out.
Firestarter.
Otherwise, Firestarter, you know, like, it's like a flyby state. It's there, it's not bad, it's whatever.
Yeah. If you're looking to dive into 80s cheese, this is for you.
I think that's worse. Be good, have fun.
See you next time.
Welch Review. 80s cheese in your mouth.